Hello, I'm Diksha, and in this video I'll deliberate about costing and what-if analysis in vRealize Operations Manager 7.0. As we know, costing was only available with VRBC, but now it is also available in VR of 6.7 and above versions. First of all, let's see how cost is calculated in backend. For this, we need to know what are cost drivers. Basically, the private cloud expenses are categorized into different types such as license, facilities, maintenance, network, server hardware, storage, labor, and additional cost. All these are known as cost drivers. Now, questions arrive how cost of these cost drivers are decided. For this, VROps maintain a reference cost of these cost drivers, but it may not be accurate. For example, you might have received some discount during a bulk purchase. So to get accurate values, one can modify the default cost of cost drivers from vRealize portal. This I will show later in the video. Moving towards cost calculation, vRealize with the help of these cost drivers calculate total infrastructure cost, which is nothing but sum of all cost drivers. Then it subtracts storage cost and labor cost to achieve total compute cost. Now this cost is split into CPU and memory costs based on the standard cost ratios. Then CPU base rate is computed by dividing cost attributed to CPU with expected CPU usage. And in similar way, memory base rate is calculated. But what is expected CPU usage or expected memory usage? It is the product of CPU utilization and CPU capacity in gigahertz. Similarly, expected memory usage is product of memory utilization and memory capacity in gigabytes. After all this, we get per VM cost, which is sum of CPU, memory, storage, and labor cost. And this CPU, memory, and storage cost is product of their base rates and utilization respectively. Now let's see what is the use of costing in vRops. It is used in what-if scenarios that are workload planning, physical infrastructure planning, and migration planning. Workload planning. This scenario determines if the new virtual machines will fit in the current environment or not. If yes, then how much it will cost. Physical infrastructure planning. It enables to forecast the impact of adding capacity to the target data center and how much it will cost. Migration planning. It evaluates the possibility of moving workloads across different clouds. Also, costing is used in capacity reclamation. It helps to determine time remaining until CPU, memory, and storage resources run out, and also realize cost savings when underutilized VMs can be reclaimed. So here ends enough of theory part, and now let's do hands-on vRealize portal to understand it better. This is the home page of vRealize. You know, vRealize by default uses dollar as a currency unit, but we can change it from Administration tab. Here, choose Global Settings, and in the last line, you can see the currency unit, which we can edit. Moving forward, as I said, vRealize derive values of cost drivers from reference database. So to see it, or you can say to update and install, we can choose cost reference database. Or we can modify each cost drivers from cost settings. Select respective cost driver which you want to edit and make the changes. But the changes will be reflected only after the next run. From cluster cost, we can edit whether we want to calculate the base rate of CPU and memory on the basis of actual utilization expected utilization across all clusters or expected utilization per cluster, and hence showing base rates of CPU and memory for each cluster. Now to explore usage of costing in vRealize, let's go to home page. Here select plan. We can see different what if scenarios. Suppose I select migration planning. I'll give my scenario a name, then select any one of the available cloud, say VMware Cloud on AWS. We can either import from existing VMs by using the filters VM name, vCenter, VM tag, custom group, or we can create the custom profile. Say 10. Now we will run the scenario. At the top we can see summary of the scenario. In middle we can see assessment result showing number of hosts required and expected utilization of resources. As I scroll down, we can see on-demand cost, 1-year subscription cost and 3-year subscription cost. The cost on left represents cost of virtual machine per month and the cost on right represents sum of the cost of hardware. A discount can be applicable if required. We can save the scenario for future use. Now let's create another scenario, that is workload planning. Give name to the scenario. Select the data center and the cluster in which you want to add workload. We can either manually configure the workload or we can import from existing VMs. Say this. Also edit the quantity. Now provide the start date and end date to the scenario, which is 3 months from now by default. Let's run the scenario. This shows the summary of scenario. In the middle, we get the result if the proposed workload will fit or not in the suggested location. In this case, the workload I selected does not fit in the compute cluster due to shortage of memory and disk space. Also, it shows how much the added workload reduces the time remaining. Scrolling down, we can see the cost of the workload on the VMware hybrid cloud and on AWS public cloud. Since there is crisis of resources, we can reclaim resource from this tab. Select the data center for which you want to reclaim resources. Say I want to reclaim for primary site data center. In the left frame, we can see the cost savings and the number of VMs with reclamation opportunities. Whereas the right frame shows reclaimable capacity broken down by CPU, memory, and disk space. Moving down, we can see different categories of reclamation like power of VMs, idle VMs, snapshots. Let's select idle VMs. Select the cluster to see idle VMs. Choose the VM and now we can see options to delete VM, power of the VM or exclude it so that it's not shown here. I'll choose delete VM and this shows cost savings, also resource savings associated with it. Apart from what-if analysis or reclamation, vRealize even provide cost metrics for objects like VMs, hosts, and so on, which we can use in dashboards and reports. Here I have already generated a report in which we can see the cost of VMs and it is calculated with the help of CPU base rate, memory base rate, storage cost, and labor cost. Hope you learned something from this video. Thank you and have a nice day.